everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We are at the podcast studio here in the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship. And again, we have one entrepreneur with us, Nino, from our Talented Student Entrepreneur Program. Hi, Nino. How are you doing?
Good, you?
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, no.
And I'm feeling
Thanks
great
for having
too. Nino's graduating from his master's in strategic entrepreneurship here at Erasmus University of Rotterdam, but he also co-founded an organization called Devinita. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of what we're gonna talk about today. We will, obviously talk about Devinita as an organization, and then we will also explore the vini culture, I think it's called,
Yes.
or the wine culture.
Wine culture.
Yes, and Devinita's role in it. And we will explore Devinita's future, but as well you as a student entrepreneur at the very end.
Sure.
Sounds good?
Sounds good.
Okay, then please go ahead and tell us about your entrepreneurial journey with Devinita.
Well, actually, I wanted to start my own business for a really long time already. And I tried out some small things like in the past, but never really something major. And I think last year, April, I was driving back from a friend in Leiden. And I was in the car sitting and I was thinking, why don't I start something with a passion and maybe it stays a hobby or it really becomes my own job.
Mm-hmm.
And then I called Max. He's a good friend of mine. We've known each other our whole lives. And we grew up together basically, and our parents liked good food, good drinks, so hence our passion for wine. And I called him and I asked him if he was interested in maybe just jumping in the car and setting off to Italy to look for good wines and perhaps start our own company.
So you went all the way to Italy?
Yeah, so I think about a month later we just jumped in the car, not necessarily with a plan, just with some cheese, and we drove to Italy.
It's all you need, some cheese, straight to Italy. You good.
Exactly. So when we arrived at the wineries, we just gave the winemaker a piece of cheese as a gift. And actually the first winery we visited, when we walked out, we looked at each other and said, yes, this is really what we want to do. So that's actually how our journey started. We stayed in Italy for 3 weeks to look for some wineries. Then we came back in the Netherlands with a car full of wine, no cheese anymore. And we started tasting and making a selection of wineries. And then we started with 3 wineries from Italy, from Veneto and the Marche. And then actually we just started, and we mostly wanted to focus on the restaurants, but unfortunately the COVID pandemic, another lockdown started, so that was a bit complicated, but
So you basically
survived.
Import wines.
Yeah.
So what exactly is Devinita all about?
We're importing Italian wines, only Italian wines, and the main wineries we're focusing on, it's like either a new wine project or new styles, and we're mainly looking for some younger winemakers overall.
Okay.
But we started with restaurants, so the focus mainly was to find like a broad assortment for restaurants, because for restaurants it's more price quality that's important than whether you really have a brand or a story. But only like lately, these couple of months, we're focusing more on private customers as well, so then the brand becomes more important and a unique selling points and everything, so that's switching a little bit.
But what encompasses the mission?
The mission of Devinita is to bring high quality flavors from Italy, from new and special wine projects to the Netherlands and introduce them on the Dutch market. So in the wine industry, basically, there are usually like a couple of regions which are really famous. For example, in Italy, it's Barolo is one of them.
Barolo.
Yeah, so Barolo is a red wine, and it comes from a certain village, and only wines from that village are allowed to be called Barolo from a certain grape. So there's like only a limited availability of the wine, because it's of course a limited region where the wine is being produced.
So that's why exclusive.
Yeah, and everybody knows it, but there are also some other regions with really good wines, but it's not really known on the market yet. So we're also trying to promote those wines. And for example, Barolo, it really has a distinctive taste. It's a very like a strong tannic wine. And our winemaker tries to make it a lot more elegant. He's quite young, he's 24 years old. So he really has his own style of making Barolo, for example. So we're either trying to find new regions with high quality wines, or like old regions but with new styles or new winemakers.
And that passion that you just mentioned, that led you to going after Devinita, where does it come from?
I think like as we can both grow up together, we traveled a lot, and with our parents we often like had the dinners together with some good food, good drinks. I really love Italy. We both really love Italy, like for the people, the history, the culture, the scenery, nature, and everything, like Tuscany. So that all together really led us to importing wine, Italian wine, instead of like any other countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But do you also have an Italian background?
Only my name, but apart from
only
that.
So Nino's only an Italian name, but
yeah.
you have a Dutch background, both of you?
No, I don't have a Dutch background. Like my father's half Indonesian and my mother's half Polish, so that's a mix. And my friend, my co-founder, he's Dutch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But Devinita was somewhat established in your studies, right?
Yes, yeah.
So how did you do that? How did you balance out being a student and a student entrepreneur?
Yeah, like I think first of all it's also like setting priorities a bit. Like I decided to do this master because I want to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I think it's quite nice on one hand to study and have your own business at the same time, because there like you have access to quite a big network. During your classes you're learning stuff and you can immediately apply it to your own business. So that's good. At the same time, like I said, it's also about setting priorities, because if you're running your own business and there's actually money involved and you're studying while you completed your bachelor already, like for me at least, my priority was my own company. But at the same time I wanted to finish it like within 1 year. At least that was my plan. So it's also a lot about planning and like planning everything. Yeah.
And what was very difficult for you in that process? Challenges?
Well, of course, during the master you have quite a lot of deadlines all the time, and when you start your business you also have a lot of deadlines and a lot of things you have to fix, and you don't have employees yet who you can delegate tasks to, so you have to do everything yourself. There's a lot of things you have to learn, especially for me at least, on some legal stuff, some financial stuff, like website, for example, we built ourselves in the beginning. So it's a lot of work, and it's a completely new business we entered. Like I didn't have any experience in like importing wine, of course, or working with restaurants. So yeah, there were so many new things to learn, and also some things I didn't think of before. So it's on both hands. It was learning a lot, and like a lot of
learning on the job,
work pressure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But what systems kind of helped you get to where you wanted to go?
What do you
Maybe mean? Like family that supported you at the university?
I think like the father of a friend of mine, he just sold his company. It's been like an entrepreneur his whole life as well. So he's like has been our coach a bit. We have like another, the owner of a wine bar and a wine wholesale company, Wim. He also helped us a lot with a lot of tips and a lot of advice and in general. And of course here we have ECE, like a TSEP, like a Talented Student Entrepreneur Program, which was quite useful, mainly in regard to like maybe some deadlines with my thesis, for example, that I could have some delay because it was too much to do everything at the same time. So from everywhere there was a little bit of help, which was quite useful.
And what was the role of your other co-founder?
Helping each other,
Max,
you mean? Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, like, what way was his task basically in Devinita, his specialty?
Like Max was more focused on the sales part, so on the restaurant. So that means like it's quite difficult to get in a restaurant in the Netherlands, because especially when there are a lot of people starting their own wine import business. Like I think 9 out of 10 times they're a bit older people who start importing wine out of a passion. So we were one of the few young ones, and what you see quite a lot from what I've heard is that a lot of people who start importing wine, they also stop quite quickly, because it's a very competitive market. I think it's quite difficult. So restaurants, they are not very eager, especially during the COVID pandemic, to start working with new importers. Usually when they already work with an importer, they already have a good relationship, so they have to remove wines from their cart to add a new importer. They have, of course, have to work with a new one, so that also is like in regards to administration, a lot of work. And when you start, you have a very small assortment. So for them to add you to their wine cart for just one wine, it also doesn't really make sense. So it's quite difficult to get inside. So that takes quite a lot of work to arrange, for example, wine tasting with them. build a relationship, maintain a relationship, and everything. Yeah.
But you said it's a competitive environment, so how do you stand out as Devinita?
Yeah, like I think it's price quality, that we have some good wines. We're like mainly focused on fine dining, but still in that segment we have some really good quality wines for a good price. We have new styles, something new we bring to the market. In fine dining there are a lot of restaurants like which, for example, they don't want to work with the same wines as other fine dining restaurants because it's also their competitive advantage if they have like a wine that is not on the card of another restaurant.
Makes sense.
And we're like the wines we're bringing to the Netherlands, we're the only importer, so we always make sure that there are no other importers importing those wines. So we're literally the only one. So that's really something we add to our own portfolio, so to say. And like I mentioned, we're also really looking for some new things, so, which are just new to the Dutch market or completely new wine projects. An example of that is, for example, a grape that only grows in a vineyard of one winemaker and nowhere else in the world. So it's really something exclusive and something new, which is quite interesting for some restaurants.
Nice. That's a really good strategic thing, you know, to get a competitive advantage over other wine importers. But now that we're a little bit diving into wine, we can, I think, talk a little bit more about the wine culture. So I think the very first question that I had for you, what makes wine wine?
I think wine embodies a lot of things, which goes from nature, because of course you have the winemaker who has to work with the terroir he has, so like it's the soil, the sun, the location, the microclimate of the vineyard. You have philosophy, because there are like, and history of course, because for example the difference between grain and a wine plant is grain, it grows 1 year and then you have to seed it again. You have to harvest and throw the seeds in the ground again. And with wine, it's there like sometimes for hundreds of years, the vineyard, which ends up like the soil actually affecting the grape, the fruit, because like the minerals they go into the plant itself. So it's of course history, it's nature as I mentioned, and philosophy, because it's the winemaker who in the end can twist, so to say, that like the recipe of the wine a little bit to give it its own style or its own taste. So it's a lot of things. Enjoying life, of course, like. Right?
Enjoying life.
Yeah, but like drinking like a glass of wine can really make at least me really relax, or like when I'm reading a book or sitting in nature, it's really like a nice moment to enjoy it.
I will now just consider myself a dummy and ask a very, you know, not dumb question, but let me see. How would you try to explain to someone who's not very knowledgeable of wine how the fermenting process looks like?
Well, I'm not a winemaker, but I do know.
Try to explain it for a dummy.
It's basically turning the grape juice into an alcoholic beverage. So what basically happens is that the winemaker he adds yeast to the process, and those animals inside, they eat the sugar and they like poop out alcohol, and that's like a wine.
Thank you.
Like,
Can we please add this to Wikipedia? No, I get it. No, thank you. You mentioned already a little bit of your own personal relationship with wine. Like, can you tell us a little bit more about your professional and personal relationship with wine?
My personal relationship with wine is that it's a bit intertwined, of course, because as I mentioned, I'm working with my passion, so I'm doing what I love. I have to say, like, I'm not really drinking like throughout the whole week. Like, it's usually in the weekends or on holiday that I taste a lot of wine, but that's something else.
Part of the job.
No, I think it's really nice to just like relax, open a nice bottle of wine, drink it, and also like trying out new things, trying out new vintages, also with my friends or with the winemakers. Like, it's both really a moment for yourself to relax and also really something to enjoy, like to try out new things and see like what's there available in the world.
And what is your opinion on the wine, like on the Dutch wine industry?
As in Dutch winemakers or the Dutch wine industry itself?
You can choose.
Winemakers, I don't really drink Dutch wine. I doubt if I think I tried it, but it's not really something I'm really into. I like more like French and Italian wines. For the wine industry in the Netherlands, As I mentioned, it's a really competitive market because the Netherlands is a small country, but people really like to drink wine. Yeah, my opinion on it, like as I mentioned, it's a very competitive market. We also experienced it ourselves, that we like started working with a winemaker, and that there are also a lot of other importers like looking for the winemakers in the same region. So maybe sometimes it's a bit difficult to keep the exclusivity. Well, that's really what we're aiming for.
May I ask with how many winemakers you're currently working with?
I think now with 11 or 12.
11 or 12.
Yeah.
So it's kind of all spread around Italy, or is it like one?
No, we actually go by, like we start in the north of Italy, so it's in Piedmont where Barolo is from, Veneto where Valpolicella is from. It's like there are in Italy basically 3 really big red wines. Those are like Barolo, Valpolicella, Amarone and Brunello. And Brunello is from Tuscany. So we're like in Piedmont, in Veneto, in Tuscany, and in the Mark. And the Mark is the other side of Tuscany. And as I mentioned, we're also looking for new wine regions. And you could consider like the Mark as a new wine region, Ufida it's called. Yeah.
So how do you add, like as Devinita, how do you add value to the viniculture?
Yes, same in the Netherlands. In Italy we're working with some really young winemakers, as I mentioned. So, for example, Andrea and Paolo. Paolo is from Veneto, from Valpolicella, and Andrea is from Tuscany. And they like have a bit their own style and really their own philosophy of making wine. And it's really the new generation. For example, Andrea, his father, was one of the most famous winemakers from Tuscany. And now he's the one like basically taking over, so we're trying to give him a stage in the Netherlands. And I didn't mention it before, but something that really, at least it's mostly for private customers, but also for restaurants. For us, the story behind the wine is very important. So, for example, last Monday we hosted an event for restaurants where we invited the sommeliers, so those are the ones who decide on the wine card of a restaurant, to come to our wine tasting event. And there we also invited our winemakers, so that people selling the wine in restaurants in the Netherlands also got to meet the winemakers and know who's actually producing the wine, what's the story behind the wine, what's the philosophy behind the wine. So that's how we try to add value.
I want to understand why it is so intriguing for someone to know the story behind something that I drink.
Because it adds to the whole experience. Maybe you understand better like what you're tasting and why you're tasting what you're tasting. And I think wine is all about telling the story, the history. That's what people like. It's really an experience. Yeah.
Can you tell us one of your favorite stories?
I have many.
Okay, choose the one that pops up in your head.
The first one that pops up, I think it's maybe Paolo, because it was just a fun experience how we got there. His winery is called Care Magi. It means like House of Magic in Italian.
House of Magic?
House of Magic, yeah.
Okay.
And it was the day after the final, the European final between I think Italy and it was England. So it became quite late that night. We didn't have much sleep, and the day after we had to travel for like 2 hours to his winery. There were like 7 more wineries we could choose from to visit. It was our first trip after 3 weeks of drinking wine every day, like multiple times. We were really, really tired. And Andrea from Tuscany, I told you before about, it's a friend of Paolo. He recommended us 7 wineries to visit, and then we decided to go to Care Magi, Paolo's winery. Then we arrived there, and like he opened the door, and it's called House of Magic, and like inside it was full of like dwarves and all kind of stuff, like in a magical theme. And then we went to the tasting room, and we asked him if we could like see the cellar. Have you seen Narnia by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah. So in Narnia you have like the closet, right, which the child opens and then he goes into a magical world. Yeah. We asked him to see the cellar, and said, yeah, of course, but we didn't see any like stairs anywhere. But there was only a closet in the room. So he opened the closet and like went downstairs, down on the stairs to a beautiful cellar with like what's it called, like pillars and stuff, which looked really nice. And he also brought us to the vineyard, and it's in Fumane. It's a bit like it's the coldest region of Valpolicella, and it's a bit outside of the city, like into the woods. So we went to the vineyard, and it was like full of life. There were like what's it called?
In your world.
Yeah, like a lot of like animals, like rabbits, insects. There was even a goat in the vineyard. He didn't know how it ended up there, but it was there. And then we went tasting his wines, and they were like really amazing. And Paolo himself is like, I think now 33 years old, so quite young, but internationally he's really like getting a lot of fame now for his own style of making wines.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's like one of the stories.
This is one of the stories.
Like, yeah.
Nice, nice. Do you also tell this story then to the people when you pour that wine? Nice. You mentioned that you have wine tastings, right?
Yeah.
Is this one of your activities that you do, or do you also have other activities?
No, we host wine tasting events for like ourselves. We host them usually in Amsterdam in an art gallery because we like to combine art and wine. And we host them for restaurants. We also host them on location. We attend like, for example, this Sunday we have wine, how do you call it, like fair. Which we're attending with a stand, so we're doing like quite a lot of different things.
Do you do it regularly or more on demand?
Wine tasting events like at least once a month overall, sometimes 2-3 times a month, so it's quite often.
And do you have a very specific target group as well?
Yeah, people who like Italian wine, but quite a lot of people do. Yeah, like we're actually working on it now. We have like 2 target groups. Like one of them we're trying to reach through Instagram is a bit like new generation of wine drinkers.
Okay.
So I'd say like it's up to 35 years old, 40 years old. And the other generation we reach them through offline marketing activities, so just flyers and that kind of stuff. So those are a bit like the 2 target groups.
I was actually wondering, do you see any trends in the wine industry that kind of impacts Devinita?
Yeah, like organic wines, quite a lot.
Okay, organic
Natural
wines.
wine.
What are organic wines?
It's basically, as far as I understood, it's that the vineyard is grown organically, so they don't add certain products like no pesticides, like, but also like they have a limited list of things they're allowed to use during the winemaking process. So that's basically organic.
Okay. What about the climate situation?
That's something that is impacting wine industry a lot, from what we see. So, for example, at our wine tasting events, we don't serve any meat, only like vegetarian food, because we firsthand saw like what impact climate change has on the wine industry. Like for example, in Tuscany, it hasn't been raining. Like at least last week, it started raining for the first time in months. And I think since April, May, it has been like 30 plus degrees, usually around like 37 degrees, like the whole, all the months. So that's quite crazy in regard to the heat. And like the harvest starts, I think, about 40 days earlier than it usually starts. So it's really like, it's quite shocking actually to see. Yeah.
But do you have any countermeasures?
Yeah, like I mentioned, we're like only serving like vegetarian food at our events to also increase the how do you say it? The people are aware of what's going on. Apart from that, it's quite difficult because we're thinking about it a lot, but we're not really sure yet what to do exactly. Like the vineyards we are working with, for example, Paolo, he's the coldest region, I think, as I mentioned, in Valpolicella. There are 12 villages, and Fumana is the coldest one. So for him, actually, like the increase in temperatures is good because his wine is getting better. But at the same time, you still need rain to, like you need water for the plants to grow. So that's like something else.
Yeah, I do hope that you come up with some kind of solution if there will be problems.
No, actually, we do have a solution. Like, I think next month we're launching a new product because so far it has been quite traditional what we're doing, like quite straightforward. I mean, just like buying wines in Italy and selling them in the Netherlands. And we'll start with a membership where we'll be working with an Italian chef, Federica from Tuscany. She has her own cooking show, and you can like apply for a membership, and then every month you get sent home a box with a bottle of wine and a video of her giving you a cooking class, Italian cooking class in Italian for a dish of a recipe that pairs well with the wine. There will be a video of the winemaker who explains the story behind the wine, and there will be like we're working with an Sicilian importer of like Italian food products. So one of the things that is in the recipe will also be in the box.
That's creative.
Yeah.
So
And in that way, like we're not really bound to our own winemakers, so to say. So we can also, for example, work with like other importers or wine from other Italian regions.
Creative,
Yeah.
That's a really nice, innovative idea.
Yeah.
Let's talk now to wrap up a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
Now that you're close to finishing with your studies, what are your future plans?
Yeah, we really want to grow the business, especially in the restaurant industry. So as I mentioned last Monday, we had our wine tasting event with restaurants, and there were like about 30 restaurants, and like we really want to focus on like the fine dining in the Netherlands and become well known for like high quality wines. So I really hope to grow in the restaurant business, especially also to help our winemakers, because like they're really nice guys with their own philosophy, like to really give them a stage on the Dutch market. And at the same time, like our own goal is that we would like to start an Italian wine bar, where with like Italian food as well. So that's something we're looking for, like maybe next year somewhere or the year after. Yeah.
Would that be located in Amsterdam or?
Yeah, probably in Amsterdam.
Hit me up. Is your mere focus to import wine to the Netherlands, or is it also, I don't know, a plan to maybe shift it to other countries?
No, it's Netherlands.
Exclusively to the
Netherlands. Yeah, exclusively to the Netherlands.
Is there a reason why you only focus on the Netherlands?
Many winemakers already have importers in different countries, and for now, like the Dutch market is big enough to work on. Maybe in the future it will change, but not entirely sure. Yeah.
So, if you reflect back on your entrepreneurial journey, what is the one lesson that you learned? Just start for sure. Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. No, I think what's really important is that you have got like a passion for what you're doing, because it's like it can be quite tiring, stressful. Like of course, like everybody knows the whole story of like that. It takes a lot of work, perseverance, because sometimes things are not going the way you wish them to go. Quite often they're not. So I think that's important, and something that really helped me so far is like having a coach, like also on different parts of the business, whether it's like a personal level, strategic level, or like just knowledge about the market itself. I think having a coach is really like imperative for success. Yeah. Is
that your final advice to our viewers, or do you have any other advice that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think also preparing, like for your
preparation.
No, but I mean, like personally for entrepreneurship, like knowing your own like pitfalls, like that you're not like working every night until 4 a.m. until you have a burnout, for example. So like the long working hours, like prepare yourself mentally, but also really prepare like something tangible for your journey. Yeah. Okay,
that was some good advice. Yeah. And we actually came to an end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that was it, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for more episodes and more impact stories to come. And I see you next time.
I would say never give up. It's cliche, but just do it.
Just not cliche.
Dive in the deep and just take your chance.